Good morning, fifth graders. I wanted to briefly go over some of the worksheets and the work that you're going to be doing this week from the packets that you picked up yesterday. So first of all, we're going to talk about worksheet number 90, which should have been at the top of your English packet. It goes with the lesson that you did last Friday or Thursday, subordinating conjunctions. We know conjunctions. We used to call those joining words. And they join two parts of a sentence together, or two clauses together, or an independent clause and a fragment together to make a different kind of sentence. And at the top of your page, just like you had on the worksheet that you did last week, there is a list of the subordinating conjunctions. The conjunctions, or the joining words that we always used up till this point, were the words and, but, and or. But now we have a lot more at the top of your page here, common subordinating conjunctions. They're all listed there for you in the box. So they'll help you as you're looking for those in the sentences here that you're going to be doing. The instructions for this page says circle the subordinating conjunction. So you just have to go up here into the box and find one of these words in each of the sentences. And when you do that, you're going to first circle it, and then on the blank you're going to write an I if the underlined clause, and in the first one it says since tomorrow is Danny's birthday. That's the underlined clause. In this one, you're going to decide if that is an independent clause. Can that be a sentence all by itself, or is it a dependent clause? So it's going to need another clause in there to make it a complete sentence. If your sentence begins with one of the common subordinating conjunctions, then it's going to be a dependent clause. Because when you say, since tomorrow is Danny's birthday, you need to add something to that. That's not a complete sentence. What about since tomorrow's Danny's birthday? Well, this sentence says, we will have a party. So that's what's going to happen. But we don't know that with just that first part that's underlined. So it's dependent. That means it depends on the rest of the sentence, the other clause in there, to make it a complete sentence. So that one would be dependent. Since would be the word you would circle. It's the subordinating conjunction. And it's a dependent clause because it doesn't make sense by itself. And you'll find that when it's the first word in the sentence, it's going to be a dependent clause. Now, subordinating conjunctions can come at different places in the sentence. They can be at the very beginning, or they can be on over into the middle of the sentence, like number 2. If we read number 2, it says, Meg's mom will make cupcakes if we ask her. Well, when you look through that list of subordinating conjunctions, you see that the word if is a subordinating conjunction, and it's over in the middle of the sentence. So we're going to circle if, and then the clause that comes after if we ask her. So, if we ask her, does that make sense by itself? If we ask her what? What's going to happen? It does not. So also it would be a dependent clause. It depends on the first part of that sentence to make sense. But sometimes they're used that you use a subordinating conjunction, and it's an independent clause. Because when you look down at number 4, the word when is on our list. And it's at the very beginning of the sentence, but that's not the clause that they have underlined, because it says, when he walks in the door. Well, that clause is a dependent clause. We don't know what happens when he walks in the door, but they've underlined, everyone will shout surprise. Is the phrase or the clause, everyone will shout surprise, a complete sentence? It is. You could say that without the rest of that sentence, and it would make sense. So in that one, you have a subordinating conjunction, but it also is an independent clause. It can stand alone, like they've underlined. So make sure you circle the subordinating conjunctions, and then decide, is it dependent? Is the one underlined dependent? That means that it needs help. Or is it independent? It can stand alone. It doesn't need help. In the second section down there, you're going to complete each sentence by adding a dependent clause. That means one that needs help, that begins with a subordinating conjunction, and it says do not use the same conjunction twice. So now for these sentences, you've got to add something to it to finish it, and you've got to choose one of these words up here for each one, and you can only use one once. I'll do, let me see, number 7. Number 6 says, I like the beach, and then you've got to finish that sentence, and you're going to choose one of those words, a reason you like the beach, or when you like the beach, or whatever like that. But number 7 is a little bit difficult because at the beginning, there's nothing there. You've got to put the beginning of the sentence. So I thought we'd talk about that one. You have a blank and a comma, and it says, I build sandcastles. Well, if I go up here and I look at my subordinated conjunctions, I see the word when I'm at the beach. That is the subordinated conjunction I chose to use, when, and the dependent clause I added was when I'm at the beach. That makes that a complete sentence. So that's how you'll do those. You'll choose a different word. I can only use when one time. You can use after one time, or because, or until, or since. Anyway, you've got 7 of them there, so you'll have to use 7 different subordinated conjunctions to finish those sentences. And then at the bottom for number 13, it says use a subordinating conjunction to combine the sentences. It gives you 2 sentences. It says the bulldozer moves mounds of dirt. I like to watch. Well, they want that to become one sentence. So you can either use a subordinated conjunction at the beginning and connect the 2 sentences, or in the middle and connect those 2 sentences to make it one compound sentence. So that's how you're going to do that page. For the next lesson, on page 279 in your book, you are going to be talking about 2 kinds of sentences. We have compound sentences and we have complex sentences. And they are different. And I'm going to tell you how they're different, but also in the yellow box at the top of your page on 279, it tells you this. Let me see. I wanted to talk about that just a little bit. Okay, that's right. A compound sentence contains 2 or more simple sentences. So it's got 2 sentences in there. They both are complete sentences. But they can be combined with a comma and one of your coordinating conjunctions, the ones that we are used to using, and, but, and or. And that makes a compound sentence. And then you have complex sentences, which are a little bit different, because a complex sentence has an independent clause. That is, it can be a sentence all by itself, and it's combined with a dependent clause, one that needs a helping part of the sentence. A comma will be follow a dependent clause that comes at the beginning of a sentence. And on page 279, it talks about your independent clauses and your dependent clauses. The independent clause is a complete thought. We talked about this before. It's a sentence. We call it an independent clause because it can stand alone. It doesn't need help. It's a sentence. And a compound sentence, like I said, contains 2 or more independent clauses. So it could be 2 separate sentences, just like on that worksheet that I just talked about, the very last one, 2 different sentences. But then they can be joined together with a comma and one of these conjunctions, and it becomes a compound sentence. But then the complex sentences have dependent clauses. That word dependent, it means it depends on something else to help it out. So that's why it's called a dependent clause. It can't stand alone as a sentence. It's not a complete thought. It can't stand alone. And a dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction like the words after, although, because, all that was on your worksheet that we just looked at. So if you look at 279 at the guided practice there, it says underline the independent clause. That's the one that could be a sentence all by itself. And then circle the conjunction. And then you're going to fill in the circle to tell whether the sentence is a compound sentence, that is two complete sentences joined together, or a complex sentence, a complete sentence and an incomplete sentence joined together. So the first one, it says, Gustave Eiffel studied the science of metals while he was in school. So the independent clause in that sentence is the first part. Gustave Eiffel studied the science of metals. That could be a sentence all by itself. And then you see the word while, which you would circle, because that is one of your subordinating conjunctions. And then while he was in school. While he was in school can't stand alone, okay? That means it's dependent. It needs the help of the other clause in the sentence. So because of that, we have one independent clause at the beginning and we have a dependent clause. So that means it's a complex sentence. All right. Number 2, when Eiffel finished school, his first job was designing a metal bridge. Well, right away we see the word when right at the beginning of that sentence. So we know that is our conjunction. We're going to circle it. And the independent clause in that sentence is the second part. His first job was designing a metal bridge. That sentence could be a sentence all by itself. It doesn't have to have any help. The first part, when Eiffel finished school, is a dependent clause because we don't know what happened when Eiffel finished school without the rest of the sentence. So again, that one is a complex sentence. But then number 3 says Eiffel was successful and he became known as Europe's master metal builder. So the word and is our conjunction. It's one of these. And both Eiffel was successful could be a sentence all by itself. It's only 3 words, but it could be a sentence. Eiffel is the subject, was is the verb, was what? He was successful. That could be a sentence, so it's an independent clause, as well as he became known as Europe's master metal builder. That could be a sentence all by itself. So they're joined with the word and that you would circle, but it is a compound sentence because it has 2 independent clauses in it. So that's how you'll do 1 through 7 on the back of the page. Down at the bottom of 279, you've got to combine the sentences using the conjunction they give you. I see or and I see until. And write compound if it's a compound sentence, and write complex if it's a complex sentence, adding your commas as necessary. Remembering if it's 2 independent clauses, it's compound. If it's 1 independent and 1 dependent, it's complex. And then basically 281 and 282 is doing the same thing. You're deciding if they're compound or complex or simple sentences, because a simple sentence just has a subject and a predicate. It's just a basic sentence like Solomon built the temple. It can be a simple sentence and have 2 subjects or 2 predicates. We've talked about those before, compound subject or compound predicate, like Solomon prayed and gave offerings to God. Solomon's the subject. Prayed and gave are both the predicates, but they're all part of one predicate. So you'll decide if they're compound, complex, or simple on both 281 and 282, and you'll write those sentences as instructed. If you have any questions on it, make sure that you reach out to me through email or text me or call me. I'll be attaching that information with the email when I send you the link to this video, and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye-bye.